Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joe Fantozzi, Director of Recruitment here at Hunter. Welcome to our Hawk Talk for admitted students today. If this is the first time you're joining us for an admitted student event, welcome and a huge congratulations to you. This is a very competitive year for our admissions office, so you should certainly be proud of the fact that you were admitted to the class of fall 2021. Before we jump in, I just want to remind you that we are in webinar mode. So while we can't see you on camera, you can ask all of your questions and interact with us via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll either get back to you in the chat or ask your question live at the end. Given the nature of the conversation today, we'll probably wind up reading most of your questions aloud to facilitate a conversation in that way. Today's session is an extremely important one, and it differs a little bit from the others that we've been having if you've come to some of our admitted student events. Today, we're going to be focused on equity, inclusion, and anti-racism initiatives on our campus. Hunter prides itself in being an incredibly diverse campus. We have students from all over the world in every walk of life. To me, this is what makes Hunter a really fascinating place and also an ideal environment for a college experience on academic side and also on the social side. However, it certainly does not mean that we're perfect all the time. We are consistently looking to self-reflect, understand our students, and improve to make sure that Hunter's a leader in all of these different areas. Today, you're going to learn a little bit about what we're doing now and also where we're headed. We have guest speakers today who are students as well as administrators and staff. So you're going to get multiple different perspectives today. So with that, I'd like to first introduce Kevin Nesbitt, who's one of our assistant deans for student affairs and is going to be starting us off. So Kevin.
Thank you, Joe. So again, I share congratulations, and even more enthusiastically, I say welcome to Hunter, because I'm imagining you're going to make the right decision and that you'll be here with us in the fall. So welcome to Hunter. So my name is Kevin Nesbitt. I'm the assistant dean. I'm going to just have folks who are here introduce themselves individually, and then we'll start our dialogue with you. I'm the assistant dean for student affairs, and I work with a variety of areas, including financial aid, admissions, student life, and the important conversations we're having on campus around racial equity and anti-racism. So I'll turn to Misha Smith.
Hi, everybody. My name is Misha Smith. I know I probably saw some of your names look familiar from my previous Student Life Accepted Students Day portion, and you'll recognize some of the students from that talk too, but I am the director of student life at Hunter, and I worked with many of these students and Kevin for a while on ensuring that Hunter is not only a diverse space, but is a space that feels welcoming to all students, and is a space where we're consistently having these conversations about how we can get closer to true racial equity at our campus. But Hunter, it's been a really transformative year in a lot of different ways. Clearly, of course, there's COVID-19 and that move to distance learning, which many of you have also had to go through. But it also gave us an opportunity to start to have some discussions in ways that we never really had the time for before. And it has really allowed for students, faculty, and staff to get together and have these discussions. So we're really excited to be at this place that we are now. We're excited that we're going to be coming back to campus soon, and we'll get to implement a lot of these ideas that we've been talking about. And I'm especially excited for you to hear from this amazing panel of students who are not only fantastic scholars and great examples and mentors for younger students, but they're also dedicated to this work. And they've really dedicated a huge amount of their time to ensure that racial equity is something that consistently stays on top of mind at Hunter. So I want to start, why don't we start with Kayla? And if everybody can just go through and just introduce yourselves, let everybody else know, let the students here know, what year you are, what your major is, and how you're involved in this work of racial equity.
So hello everyone, my name is Kayla. I am a current sophomore at Hunter, double majoring in political science and Chinese language and literature with a minor in Japanese language. I'm currently also the External Affairs Commissioner on our undergraduate student government, which means I'm in charge of communication, sending out emails to students, posting events on our social media, which also helps students become more aware of what type of events we offer.
Dave, do you want to go?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Dave. I'm a junior currently at Hunter College, and I'm also majoring in political science with minors in human rights and public policy. And I'm a current junior senator in the undergraduate student government, and I work on a lot of issues, also with the University Student Senate, which is the broader CUNY like student body and CUNY student government body that works on a lot of these issues to improve the lives of students within CUNY, but especially at Hunter as well.
Great. Justina?
Hi guys, I'm Justina. I'm a USG representative. I am in the Student Welfare Committee and Cultural Affairs Committee, and a lot of that work looks like, helping students at Hunter and, planning events that like help students gather together and like kind of find their niche and what they're into. I'm also in the Racial Equity Task Force, specifically in the Admissions and Recruitment Committee. And what that looks like is also, looking at our admissions practices, our recruitment practices, and seeing, what needs to change and what needs to reform in order to advance racial equity.
Great. And then Sephora.
Hey everybody, my name is Sephora. I am a junior studying biochemistry, and I am also part of the Racial Equity Task Force in the Admissions and Recruitment Committee.
Great, thank you all so much. So just to be honest and transparent, I'm having some technical difficulties. So if you see me moving all around, it's not because I'm nervous. It's just because I'm holding my phone in my hand. So bear with me. So one of the distinctions I've had the opportunity to sort of play a role in is thinking through our racial climate on campus in the wake of what we all were faced with in this last year, right? Not anything new to many of us, but certainly new in the way we were confronted with racial injustice in society. And so what I've had the privilege to do is work with many of the students on campus and also my colleagues, faculty and staff in what the president has put together, which is a task force on racial equity. And in particular, I oversee the group that is working on admissions and recruitment practices, which has really been important because we're thinking through how we can champion and make Hunter the most diverse and interesting place it can be, but also how we can bring in the voices of students. There are other working groups that are a part of this work that are interesting to mention because this work is not temporary work. Racism isn't a temporary issue. So we imagine that students will be helping us to think through how to solve this problem by the time my kids get to Hunter College. And that's just the facts. This is something we'll be working on for quite a long time. And we're really enthusiastic about the fact that you've joined us in this conversation today. Some of the other groups work on programming, and Misha will tell you a little bit about that. Some of the other groups think about how curriculum impacts students. Some of the other task force working groups spend time focusing on what are the support programs look like. So we've admitted you here, we brought you to Hunter. We said this is a place you can call your home for the next 4 years. How do we make sure it's your home? What does support look like? What does advising look like? What does it look like day to day to walk through the halls and feel like this is your community and a place where you can have impact? And we're also thinking more broadly about the ways in which we understand and create an environment that ensures anti-racism for each and every person that walks through the door. And there's another task force that's looking at that. I'll turn it over to Misha to tell you a little bit about the programming aspect, and then we're going to jump into what you're all here for, which is hearing from your fellow students about their experiences in this work.
Yeah, so thanks, Kevin. As Kevin said, there's multiple committees that make up our Racial Equity Task Force. And that task force was formed last summer. It was in direct response to the outcry that we saw so many of our students participating in. And the outcry included making sure that Hunter was doing this work. You know, it wasn't enough for us to determine that like we were diverse and we have a bunch of students from all over the world and they all speak different languages. And so that must mean everything's fine. You know, it was important to us to start to think about how could we internally become better? And to do that, we wanted to make sure that we not only had faculty and staff talking about this, but to include student voices in that. They're the ones who are most directly affected. And so last summer, President Raab started to put together this task force to take a real broad and holistic look at Hunter and to really start making some recommendations on how we could even be better. And I think that's pretty transformative. And you'll look at other colleges and a lot of people put out statements and a lot of people put out like nice videos and things like that, but not so many colleges were really taking the time to say, no, we're going to invest time, we're going to invest money, we're going to invest our staff, we're going to invest our faculty into doing this work. And so it's been really, I mean, I think transformative for me. It's exciting to know that I work at a place that values this. And what's been especially transforming is getting to see students consistently being involved in this work. And that comes up in a number of different ways. So as Kevin mentioned, I'm the chair of the programming committee. And one of the best things that I've gotten to do in the 8 years I've been at Hunter is start to make programs around these issues that we're talking about today. You know, it was important to us to say, we were looking at what was happening this summer, and we were seeing so many students responding and tweeting and Instagramming about things like, you know, microaggressions and things like, should you tear down monuments? You know, what does it look like to be inclusive? What does it look like when we're talking about COVID-19 and how the response has been throughout New York City? What does that look like through the perspective of minorities in the city? And we were seeing all these conversations happening, and it became really important to me to say, our job is to educate students. And so if this is what they're talking about, then this is how we should be educating them. And so we were able to launch the Speaking of Justice program last fall, and we've gotten to do about, oh gosh, I think 8 of them now. And we've seen so much student participation, faculty, staff, and we were able to have some of these really in-depth conversations. One of my favorites is when we had a recent Hunter alum join a Hunter professor and a Hunter staff member, and they started just talking about code switching and what that looks like for students and what that experience is like. And, you know, we've seen hundreds of students participate in these programs, and it's been really important for them to have a space to learn more about these issues. But I think also, and students will talk about this, a space to like have these conversations consistently with others in the Hunter community. We were also excited to launch our first ever like full Hunter community read. So that was for not just students, but for faculty and staff. And we invited and allowed each Hunter community member to read Audre Lorde's Sister Outsider. Audre Lorde, if you don't know, is a very transformative poet and writer who was also a Hunter alum and who also was a professor at Hunter for many years. And so to get to embrace this world-changing, world-shifting alum who at a time when this world was not ready for it, who was writing and producing things that really challenged this idea of what America looked like and what it looked like for a Black, female, educated, lesbian woman to really get to have our students start to think about following in those kind of footsteps and thinking about what the world looked like through her perspective. And so we were able to launch that community read, and this semester, you'll see online, and I'll put it, and we can share it with you all, but you also get to see that we launched what we call the Audre Lorde Now series. And that's a series that's looking at Audre Lorde's work. And then we've really dedicated our spring semester to that work and having our faculty, staff, and students engage in those conversations as well. And those are mostly student-led and faculty-led conversations that are happening, but they're happening right now. And we're gonna continue that. As you all become students next year, you'll continue to get a new community read book. We'll continue to have these events and these conversations. And we're really excited to get to launch that so that you can all learn and hear more about it. So that's a little bit about what we've done this year and some of the things that we're looking forward to continuing to do in the years to come. But I want to turn to our students because we only have so much time, and I want to make sure that you get to hear from all of them. So maybe we'll start with a very broad sort of question, but for each of our students, if we can hear from you about like, how is Hunter preparing you to be an advocate for equity and racial justice? I don't know, who wants to hop in first?
I can start if no one else wants to start.
Go for it, Kayla.
Personally, I think the classes play a really big role because that's where you find most of your time during the week. So I think I'm a political science major, so I'm taking political science classes. Last semester, I had the pleasure of taking a white supremacy class with Professor Gabbery, and it was really informational. I learned about a whole bunch of stuff that I did not know before, and it's very discussion based. So students are required or encouraged to speak every class to really like digest the material that we have. And on top of like the programs that Misha talked about that Hunter is doing, where you can like just join a Zoom meeting and also discuss, having classes that also have the material and actually like give you PDFs for these things that you might not be able to access otherwise, I feel like it's really important.
Yeah, I'll jump right in. So yeah, I completely agree that the classes that Hunter offers really like champion, Black history and, other ethnicities as well. I had the pleasure of taking a class about Black literature. And the thing is, like, these classes are incorporated in your like Common Core curriculum. So it wasn't even like I had to kind of like go out of my way and out of my major to take these classes. I mean, these are classes that you have to be taking anyways. And, so many of them are things that you can learn about, racial equity, anti-racism, learning about, Black history, or, Latino studies, or whatever it is. Like there's such a wide range of multicultural and also like ethnic studies that you can take part in. But the other thing also is like programs, in that like whether it be, there's so many programs through, we have something called the Roosevelt House, and that houses like the public policy and human rights certificates and minors. And that like is that, I love that place, like such an amazing, I guess like collection of, programs and classes that you can take. So I'm doing my human rights minor, and that's, there's a class there that I'm taking that's anti-Black, not, what is it? Anti-racism in the UN. I was about to like mess up there. Anti-racism in the United Nations. And that class has, taught me so much. And, these are things that are like built in, you can access these things, very easy to do so, and built into your schedule as well. While there's also programs like internships and fellowships and stuff that you can do at Hunter. So I'm currently doing one of those right now, which is the Even Cast and Grove Fellowship, and that's also through the Roosevelt House. And that's basically just looking at, public policy and human rights. And specifically for me, I'm looking at how I can, create policy that, create policy for New York City that ensures like an equitable and inclusive recovery for New York City after COVID. So these are things that are, readily accessible. You can find at Hunter. I guess all you have to do is just ask, and all you have to do is really just like look for it, and it's there. And just so many opportunities for you to learn and expand your knowledge and grow.
Yeah, and then sorry, yeah. Just
no, go ahead, Dave. I was actually going to ask you to jump in and say something.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Let's do it.
So yeah, to highlight the point that Kayla and Justina both just brought up, I think in addition to like seeking out classes that are specifically centered around understanding the history of race in America and race in the world, really, even like regular classes that I'm taking, right? Whether it's like regular political science, intro to political science classes, or regular introductory courses, I've seen that professors at Hunter in particular really make it a point to approach it in an interdisciplinary way, where they incorporate this material, because right, Black history is American history, Asian American history is American history, and they really weave it in a way that it's not so much centered around what I was expecting a normal political science class to be. It was really centered around an equitable history as well. And so that's why these conversations about what our curriculum looks like is so imperative. And I think at Hunter, just like Justina mentioned, programs are really great at pushing that conversation. I've been a part of a lot of different student groups that have held several events via Zoom and during the year as well, when we were open, talking about different ways to address microaggressions, different ways to address racial equity, different places to report instances of microaggressions and things like that throughout the year. And these are conversations that happened even before the pandemic started, even before all of our gross racial inequities were exposed even further because of the pandemic. And furthermore, there's programs like the Mellon Foundation. Mellon Foundation has an incredible partnership with Hunter College, where they try to support students through fellowships that are interested in pursuing their PhDs and higher education, because they really want to transform the academia, what academia really looks like, and who is getting PhDs, who is getting graduate degrees. And I think just thinking about the way these programs are structured is incredibly important. And also to add, right, Asian American Studies, Hunter College is one of the only programs that I can recall in CUNY that has a really robust Asian American Studies program where you can engage it and you can major in it. And it's kind of revolutionary to think about being able to study race in such a critical way, in different ways as well here at Hunter.
And then I'd just like to triple down on everything that Kayla and Dave and Justina said. Definitely, your core classes already set you up with the foundation on the history and the conversations that are occurring in all of these different communities. For example, I'm taking a Filipino authors class, and I'm not only learning about a bit of history of Filipino Americans, but I'm getting exposed to all of these great writers that have, such amazing works that are out there that, I probably wouldn't have had learned about had I not taken this class, and, had I not gone to Hunter probably. And then just to add on, one of the most underrated tools that you are given as a Hunter student is your Hunter email, because I can tell you I have received probably like 20 emails every week about opportunities where you get to be exposed to this type of work, where there are conversations that are going on with the that even include the president of Hunter College, President Rab, where she's having these discussions on racial equity and racial justice. So, on top of all those classes, once you hit that, enroll button, really use and abuse that email, because it has so many things there for you to, really get educated and take part in these conversations.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I looked like I was having technical difficulty, but we speak about things because we believe in things. So I just wanted to show you my backdrop. That's actually from Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, at the very beginning of the marches. I'm there with my son. So I don't only get to do this work as an administrator, but it's important to me personally, as it is to our students. So you just heard a little bit about what Hunter has to offer our students around racial equity and racial justice, the sorts of programs. But I think we started to talk about this in a very formal way for you, right? You heard about Roosevelt House and all these sort of programs. I want to hear a little bit more about the informal. So I'd love to ask some of our students to talk about what support systems they found useful as students at Hunter, right? And these are probably the systems that are not necessarily an email, right? Not necessarily a formal sort of setting, but what you use on a day-to-day basis to get through some of the challenging times as a student in our community. What have you found to be useful? I have you thinking now.
I can take the first stab at that one.
Go for it, Dave.
So I think in terms of like informal support systems, I think student groups really is the first answer that comes to mind. And I think Hunter's student government does a great job in facilitating and creating lots of opportunities to plug into different student groups. But even like we have hundreds of clubs at Hunter College, and there are several clubs that are also like specific to ethnicities and different cultural groups, right? And so finding not only your community is possible at Hunter, but in addition to that, for me personally, I think the student groups that I've joined are really good at like not only like fostering like safe spaces for having these conversations, but also like being able to like have fun after having these really difficult conversations. And then also not only just like making it a conversation, making it a practice, and really internalizing like the core of the conversations that we're having. And for example, I'm thinking of a student government. We had a great session talking about like just Black history in terms of like trivia. Like we played like a Jeopardy kind of game in collaboration with the Black Student Union, and we were like going through like the different histories of CUNY Black history as well, because CUNY has several incredible alumni that are Black as well. So we were having these conversations in a group setting, but then after the event happened, we were thinking, okay, how can we take this history history and really acknowledge it in a deeper way. And so like these conversations really happen a lot in student groups, and also like there's like Hunter College student Facebook groups and different community support groups that exist on campus, or the virtual campus, if you will, where you can just post about something that you're feeling, and so many students will see it and they'll comment and they'll like, and you sort of starts to feel that you're not alone and that you're feeling these things because you're supposed to feel these things, and other students are feeling these things as well.
Thanks, Dave. I'll just call on someone. Sephora or Yostina? You pick, save each other here. One of you jump in.
I can go. Yeah, so I definitely agree with Dave's point about the student groups. I think it's kind of like a we're all in this together mentality, that like, oh, no matter what you're going through, I've been through the same thing too, and it's totally okay. Like, I got your back. And I think like that's what makes Hunter so great, is kind of like, I think it was really tough. So I'm a sophomore, and when I first got to Hunter, I only had that 1.5 semesters before we went online. So I think it was hard, kind of, because I'm a commuter, and so I was commuting. And I think what makes up for like the fact that like, oh, you're not like on campus, like there's not really like a campus or anything like that. I think what makes up for that is the fact that these student groups are so strong, and you know, you really feel like you've kind of like found your place there. And so like, for example, like speaking from my experience, we have like an ethno-religious like club at Hunter called Coptic Club, and I am Coptic. And so we're kind of like a very small population, but like being there, it's like, oh, I found my people. Like, these are the people that like it kind of like hits home a little bit more, because it's like, oh, so these people are not only like Hunter students, they get like the Hunter aspect of things, but these are people who have also kind of like had almost the same sort of like lived experiences as me. And so, you know, it's really great. And even then, just kind of like going from there, it doesn't even need to be like ethnic groups or like religious groups or anything like that. Honestly, just any of the student clubs that kind of foster your, you know, your learning and like encourages you to grow. And like everybody's honestly just like sharing resources in these spaces, and just being so supportive, and like, oh, you know, you need research, like, oh, like here's a lab that I've heard about that like has this thing, like go check out this thing. Like everybody's just so supportive and like really in it with you, and like really just wants to see you succeed. And I think that's what's like the best thing, is like student support in the biggest way, is like you just, you know, you just feel it. It's just there. But you know, other Hunter support systems as well include like the Office of Accessibility. I know has been such a safe haven for a lot of students, and where they can, you know, it's a place for them to go where they kind of feel that, you know, this thing that I have, like, it's not an impediment to my learning. I can navigate my learning, you know, even if I have like a mental health issue, or you know, whatever it is, like it just kind of feels like a safe haven that I know many students have spoken about, as well as the counseling services that we have at Hunter, and, you know, continue to expand and continue to grow. And I know over the summer they hired more, I think like more ethnic, you know, counselors. And so it's like, so you can relate to them more if you need to go, and people who can like kind of like share in that, you know, mentality with you, and also have started up like support groups, which I think is a really big thing. And yeah, so I just honestly, all these different avenues really allow a person to kind of feel at home at Hunter, and fosters all this like support.
Yeah, you know, you tap into this really important point that I think we strive for at Hunter, and it's something we really strive for our students of color. I don't always know what the correct phrase is, because people sort of refer to themselves differently over time. In my days, it was people of color. Now I think it's called BIPOC students, which is sort of a different way of capturing the same idea. But we are certainly committed to this point of hiring people who reflect our students, and you see that through the mental health counseling, but also to this larger point of making sure that Big Hunter feels small. Right, we're a really large institution, and we pride ourselves in that because it means we get to serve so many students and allow them to then serve their communities. But we also try to make it feel small, so you can find that experience that Yostina described, or that Dave described, where you find a home here in the middle of that. And that's particularly important for I'll use the old school term, students of color. That's really important. I'm going to turn to another question, and then if you had thoughts about the last one, let's kind of roll it into that. And it's this idea of how does the work that you do on campus or that you've been exposed to on anti-racism and equity connect to other parts of your life? This is where I call going beyond social media. You know, how do you really see this, what you're doing at Hunter, helping you to connect to the ways in which this matters in the rest of your life? Okay, silent again. Okay, Sephora. Yeah.
I guess I'll start off. So I think that when people think about, work on anti-racism and racial equity, I think it's often related to, going on marches and, taking an active role in all of those, in other ways that directly attack the problem. And I do believe those are very important work that are very, very necessary. But I also think that just being a person that comes to Hunter and that is winning and that is, getting all these awards, getting all these good grades, getting on the dean's list, and, just being there and being your best self as a person of color is also a form of work that directly combats anti-racism and racial equity, because you're showing people that, hey, I'm Black and I'm also smart, and just because I'm Black, it doesn't mean that I can't do X, Y, and Z, because let me just show you I can, and I've done it, and yeah, so as a student at Hunter, that's exactly what I got to do. I got to do, be Black and be excellent, and also take part in the active work of, taking part in ways of dismantling institutional racism, and taking part in the racial equity and anti-racism work.
Anybody else want to take a stab or respond? No. Well, one of the things I wanted to say too, you've heard all of these great things about Hunter, and these are students who are absolutely dedicated to this work. But some of the work that we're trying to do, you heard everybody talk about their classes, and those are usually in the social sciences and the humanities areas. That's what we refer to them. So your political science, your human rights, your women and gender studies, sociology, those are usually the areas where you hear a lot of these conversations happening, especially in our ethnic studies areas, right? Our Afro and Puerto Rican studies major programs, Asian American programs. But some of the work that some students and staff and faculty are doing right now is thinking about how we integrate that across every aspect of department and program and study at Hunter. So if you're a biology major, you shouldn't feel like, oh, I only really have 2 slots to take a class that'll talk about race. You should be able to have conversations about race in biology, right? And so those are the things that we're working on right now. And that's the way that we continually find ways to improve ourselves. So while we do have all of these offerings, there's going to be more to come. And we're really trying to find a way to ensure that no matter what department you're in, the idea of racial disparities, the idea acknowledging of different races of authors and scholars in these areas are being studied. All of those things are really important to us. And that's something that, our president and our provost and our deans are all looking forward to really starting to embrace and implement more changes in the years to come. So
and our students are requiring it of us. So that's why it's going to have to happen, right? And that's the beautiful thing about this. We're interested, but even if we weren't, it was going to have to happen because our students are saying this is what has to happen. And so this is a really exciting moment to see the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go ahead. You want to do the next question, Misha?
No, go ahead, Kevin.
So does anyone else want to say anything else about how their, as Dave said, practice connects to this? If not, we'll jump into the next question, which is, when you think about the future of racial equity and anti-racism at Hunter, are you optimistic and why? Now you get to dig down deep and say what you really think.
Yeah, I can go first for this one. I think I definitely am optimistic because just kind of like Misha was alluding to, right? I think to give Hunter credit, I saw a lot of universities put out general blanket statements back in the summer, right? And that was kind of the full extent of their commitment to racial equity. But I think this is now, we're in almost March now, and we're almost a year of the pandemic, right? We're still having these conversations. The task force has been meeting regularly, monthly, right? And student government is also having these conversations. So these conversations haven't slowed down. And to highlight again the Audre Lorde Now series, right? Audre Lorde is one of the most incredible alumni of Hunter College, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions. And I think thinking about like the fact that we're almost like reading, so it's a community read, we're all reading Audre Lorde's book Sister Outsider together. Like the idea of like a book club for a university as large as Hunter is it's such a like a interesting idea to me. But I think the way that Hunter has been able to really like commit to it through the leadership of Professor Jackie Brown, and sort of other Black and Brown student leaders on campus that are facilitating these discussion groups for Audre Lorde's work, that really is revolutionary in a lot of ways. And I would encourage everyone to check it out if they have a moment. But I think like when we look at things like that, I think also simultaneously, if I think about some of the own work that I've done at Hunter, and sort of the ways that it's been supported, right? So I'm an Indigenous student, and I really wanted Hunter to acknowledge and recognize the Indigenous land that Hunter was built on, and sort of have these deeper conversations about the history of Hunter College and the history of it connected to New York City. And this is something that Hunter was embracing and really was interested in leaning forward into, and was supporting through the student government in other ways to explore the history of us as an institution. And so I think when we have a college that's open to these uncomfortable conversations and leaning into that discomfort, I think that's why I'm a little bit optimistic about the future of racial equity at Hunter, because we're so willing to be uncomfortable right now, so that way we can be comfortable going forward.
Thank you, Dave.
I wanted to add on that I am also very optimistic, and just to add on to what Dave and Misha said, when the head of the university, puts the foot forward and starts to show like, hey, this is a conversation we need to have, and we need to implement in all parts of our lives, people follow suit. And so I actually enrolled back in 2018, so I had a good year or two of being a Hunter student prior to the pandemic. And I can definitely say that one of the biggest differences that I saw was that a lot of my professors now were very comfortable with having this type of conversation in the classroom. And like Misha said, we're moving in a direction where these conversations are not limited to being in the humanities. I've had my own orgo professor, being willing to have that conversation in class, and even sharing events that were happening about continuing these conversations outside of the classroom. And then not to mention my amazing fellow students who are constantly demanding for better and for more. So I have absolute faith and optimism that things will definitely change for the better.
Kayla or Justina, we want to hear from each of you on this one. Optimistic or pessimistic? How you feeling?
So I gotta echo what everybody else is saying. I'm also very, very optimistic. And really for the same reasons that everybody else is, that, as long as there are students and faculty and staff on campus at Hunter who care about these things, we will always be seeing change, and we will always be seeing reform. And there always will be students. Like, that's the good thing, is like there always will be students and faculty that are very interested in these things. I'm constantly so inspired by even like younger people that come in and who like know more than me, or are making all these like big strides in their own lives or in their communities, and who are doing the work in every single way. And there's always students that are doing that. There's always students that are coming and demanding change and, kind of like nitpicking practices and, maybe even not even practice, maybe even not even like active things that are happening, but like the silence of things and just being like, oh, that isn't right. Like we should be talking about this. We should be having a conversation about this. And so there's always students that are doing that. And so I'm always very optimistic. And even the faculty, who are very interested in supporting students in the work that they're doing, but also kind of joining the conversation, having these conversations with us, and also kind of joining the fight with us and uplifting our voices and being a part of that change, knowing that they kind of like have a higher position than us and like, maybe they will be listened to more or whatever it is, and making that choice to join us in the fight and, to even like learn from our experiences and what we've been through. It means so much. And, I saw this personally. We had a student town hall like a while ago to talk about these things, talk about racial equity. And it was, with students, but faculty also showed up to just listen about like how they can be, bringing these ideas and such into their own classrooms. And that's really where it starts first. And as we just saw, like Sephora said, like her professors having conversations about this, other professors are as well. So I'm truly very, very optimistic that, there will always be moves to advance anti-racism and racial equity at Hunter.
Thank you. So Kayla, thumbs up, thumbs down, optimism, and then I'll have you start in the thumbs up. Okay, so I'll take it to, do you want to say something? I'll take it to our next question, and then we'll hear from Misha. We'll take questions from all of our future Hunter alumni and students that are about to join us in the fall. So I'll start off with the next question. And so this is around the notion of the exhaustion that comes from caring deeply about racial issues and any issues that require you to become a social justice advocate, right? There's some that you sort of latch onto because they're important in society, and there are others that then impact who you are on a daily basis, and they tend to exhaust us all, right? They drain you. So the question is, what do you do to care for yourself and care for each other in this moment as social justice advocates looking at racial equity and anti-racism? Any of you take it away.
I'll get started first because so I'm vice president of NAMI, which stands for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's a long name. And that's, we had a event earlier this year because we were very interested in this sort of conversation about like, how can you just like, just take a step back and relax from everything that's going on. And this was like right before the election too. So like there was just so much happening, so much coming at us. And we thought that this was such an important conversation to have. And I learned so much through that event, but just honestly, putting down the phone, stop reading the news, even don't go on social media. Cause I find that, even the news has sort of permeated social media and like gotten on there, and you truly can't get an escape. I open my Instagram and I'm still like seeing what's happening and like, what crisis has happened in the world, like it's still there. So get off social media. I know it's like, social media is kind of our like, stress relief right now. It's, getting off of, school and everything like that, and just looking at like what everybody else is doing and such, but putting the phone down, honestly, like you have to do it for yourself. Stop reading the news, stop watching the news. And I know it hurts because I'm somebody who loves watching the news. I love reading the news. That's what I do. I like to stay, educated about what's going on. I want to feel like I've missed on something. And it's something that's hard to do, but it's something that you need to do for your own mental health, for your own sanity. Put down the phone, put down, the news, whatever it is. And honestly, just take a break, just shut off everything that's going on. Don't think about it. And I know it's hard. And I also feel like that also comes with like a sense of privilege, in that like sometimes like, I have privilege in that like, I don't have to be constantly faced with these things. I don't live in like an unsafe neighborhood, whatever it is. Like I have the privilege in that I can do that. But honestly, just taking whatever steps you can to try to shut off all the noise and everything that's going on, and giving yourself permission to do that. And I think that it just helps you come back better because you've taken that time for yourself to just like refresh and kind of cleanse your brain, and then you can just, from there, you can just come on better. And I know it's hard, but you have to do it.
Thank you.
Evan, we have a couple of questions that came in from some of our future Hawks. If we want to go ahead, we have a little bit of time to maybe get to one or two questions, if we could do that.
Sure, let's do it.
First one is kind of bringing us back a little bit to specific initiatives at Hunter. It's a basic question, but it's an important one. How do you go about getting involved at Hunter in these initiatives? And there's a second part to that question, which I think is an important one too. Is there a community for students who perhaps are a little bit more hesitant, not because they don't believe in everything that we're talking about today, but more because their personality maybe is a little bit more shy, and perhaps they don't see themselves as being really at the front of this and the leading advocate, but they definitely want to be involved in this conversation? How do they proceed once they get on campus? And this is for anyone, any of our students or our staff as well.
I'm dying to answer this, but I'm going to turn to the students to say what their experiences were like, because some of the folks who are speaking a lot here today are actually shy, and you're seeing the evolution. So let them tell you about how they've evolved.
For me, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about keeping an eye out in your email. And well, actually, let me rewind a little bit. The racial equity task force that Yosina and Kevin and I are on, and also Misha, the announcement came in the form of an email directly from President Raab, informing everybody everybody in the Hunter College community that this was a task force that was created, and that if you wanted to be involved, just fill out this this form rather, and let the office know that you wanted to take part in that. And I actually been really shy. That's why I haven't gotten involved in like USG and other activities on campus, but that by responding in that email, it opened the doors for me to getting involved more deeply in this type of work, and having these conversations more often.
So I can't see all if someone else wants, but I'll just say something really quickly. So we talked about email, but the truth is that Hunter, you're seeing us here, right? And we might look kind of like serious, polished people, but we're just regular folks that you would see in either a virtual space or in a physical space when we're back on campus. And a lot of what happens is that we try to make things accessible so that they're small ways you can get involved in the conversation, and then decide if what you want to do is be a part of something or lead something, and all are extremely valuable. So on our campus, you heard a lot about student life. That's a critical area and a way that you can get involved in a very local way. And not every club is gonna be the March on Washington club, right? It's not gonna always be that type of organization. It's gonna be folks. Dave gave an example where people were playing trivia, and that's important, right? So they're creating a knowledge bank of history, and it's happening in a fun space. So I think student life is a really essential way in which one can get involved. And I think the other way that you're going to see that you'll have a sort of clear space to be involved very quickly will be through our orientation program once you get here, because then we start to connect you with other students in your own classes, and also upper class students who you can connect with immediately to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I'd like to do. Or better yet, I have no idea what I'd like to do. That's the college kid I was. But then you start to just get exposure, and then you start to find your way into the story.
So I'll just add, I've known a couple of these students since they were babies when they first came to Hunter. And they have all evolved, and they've all sort of reluctantly joined things at first and then became more involved. But I will say this, and I promise I didn't pay Sephora to tell you to check your emails constantly. And we didn't even ask her to say that. That's just the truth. And the thing is, what you're seeing here today are students who we approach and ask to be on this panel because they're very involved and we know that they know things. But as Sephora stated, we put out a call, and President Raab did, to anyone. And we have over 100 people on this task force, and that includes many students who have no interest in being like on this sort of panel, right? And have no interest in speaking up this much, but they care about the work. And so they like to come to their committee meetings, and and they talk to 10 other people, and they help us to guide us in their thinking. You know, and it's the same thing for your clubs, as Dave mentioned. We have a lot of cultural clubs, we have a lot of faith-based clubs, you know, but what is really important, you can be the president of that club for 4 years, well, probably not 3.5 years, or you can be the strongest, most dependable member of that club for 4 years, or you can be the person who comes to 2 events every year, and you're still a member of the club. So it's really about, you know, we don't try to push on anybody, and I think that, you know, Dave and Kayla and Justina can tell you, like, I work very closely with student government, and I'm very tough on them about being students first and making that's what you're here for. All of this is almost a little pointless if you're going to fail out of college. That is not acceptable, and we won't allow you. You know, I've had some students that I've had to pull back from some of these things and say, you're better than the academics that you're producing right now, right? So be mindful of the fact that we are completely aware that you are students first, and your job is to secure your academic performance here. But at the same time, your job in college is to build your network. It's to surround yourself with people who are not only going to mentally and emotionally support you, but people who you'll be able to have like long-term connections with. These are the people you're going to be linked in with, right? For like the next decade or so. They're the people who are going to help you figure out where you go to grad school and help you figure out what job you take after school and what internship you should take next semester. You know, they're going to be a support system for you. And so it's a really delicate balance. And that's a huge part of what college is. It's about learning how you manage your time. And if that club is meeting during your class that one semester, then you're going to step back from that club. And not everything is so heavy. I will say that we're not always sitting here talking about, you know, the terrible sight of watching George Floyd die over that video. You know, what we're here talking about sometimes is fun events that can be like, you know, Black History Month, we did like a Black cooking demo and like learning about like the orientations of Black food. Like there's so many different ways for you to participate in this work that are about your interests and that are less about like, you know, the college needs you to perform this duty and do this. So I do want to make it clear that we try to make it fun, we try to make it educational, and then we try to offer leadership opportunities for students because that's important too and for your resumes. In any way that you choose to be an advocate over those 3 things, it's helpful to the college. All of that informs us. All of that makes us better. And so that's important for you all to understand. Never hesitate to say, I need to step back from this. You know, if Kayla pulls out tomorrow, will it throw me off? Sure. But as long as I'm okay, as long as Kayla's okay, I'll be okay. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind when don't be afraid to sign up for things. Don't be afraid to offer yourself up to things. But also don't be afraid to send that email that says, I need to pull back for a little bit for my own well-being.
Thanks, Misha. And that actually, I don't know if you happen to see it, but it coincidentally
I totally did. Yeah.
Question that came in. So with that, I think we're a little bit over time, but that's okay because this is a good conversation. So I think we are going to wrap up with that. We got to all the questions and we had really great responses from all of you. So first and foremost, a huge thank you to our presenters, our moderators, all of our students on the panel. Really appreciate your insight on these important topics and all the fantastic work that you're doing in your personal lives and also at Hunter. Also, a huge thank you to all of our admitted students for joining us today. Really hope you enjoyed this discussion. In a lot of ways, this session actually might have been one of your best insights to our student community. So we're really excited that you joined us today. We do have a lot more upcoming Hawk Talks over the next 4 weeks that are just for admitted students. So as you probably saw, like you found this one, the other topics explore different academic areas as well as the other student resources. We're certainly sad that we can't meet you in person for all of these, but we definitely encourage you to attend all these virtual opportunities to continue learning about us and who we are as an institution. All of that can be found on our admitted student page, which we'll make sure that we post into the chat. And lastly, if you've decided that Hunter is the place for you, make sure that you log into your CUNY First account, and that's where you'll be able to submit both your commitment to the college and also your deposit. So make sure you're doing that by May 1st, and that will reserve your spot in the fall 2021 class. So we definitely look forward to seeing you soon, probably on here a couple of more times, and then hopefully in person sometime in the near future. Again, a huge thank you to our panel and presenters today. And it was lovely virtually meeting all of our admitted students. So hope to see you all soon. Have a great afternoon.